Joining me now, host of the Andrea Kaye radio show, Andrea Kaye, and Democratic strategist Joel Payne. Andrea, Joel, thanks for joining me.
Good to see you guys.
Thanks for having us.
All right, Joel, let me start with you. This video, I mean, I've watched this video a handful of times over the past couple days. It's certainly been on the news a lot, and there is something I cannot wrap my mind around. This man is so genuine, so sincere, so thoughtful in what he says. How can Democrats, and I'm talking about high-profile Democrats, how can they sit there and be so cold-hearted as to say that he is simply a shill for President Trump and not actually listen to the words that he's saying?
Well, you know, I won't use the word shill, but I will say a couple of things. And I really like the tone that you set up front, you know, when you talked about, you know, that, look, the president said something that was wrong to kind of start this, and then kind of it all spiraled out of control from that. I will say, I think that General Kelly is a good man, a decent man. He has given so much to this country. What he's given to this country is unimaginable in terms of his service and in terms of being a Gold Star father. But I think what folks have taken issue with is the idea that General Kelly is above criticism and is above being held accountable for being accurate. He was inaccurate with what he said about Congresswoman Wilson. He said that she pushed for something that she didn't push for. And while that might seem immaterial, that is important if he is using the bully pulpit of the White House to go and attack a member of Congress. By the way, Congresswoman Wilson was wholly appropriate to be a part of that conversation. She was invited by this family because she's a close family friend of Sergeant Johnson and of his wife. So,
right, and be that as it may,
I believe that General Kelly is a good man. Right. I think a couple of things can be accurate at once. General Kelly is a good man. He made a mistake. This was a misunderstanding that the president probably could have done something to avoid in the first place.
Listen. I don't think people, and I certainly don't know anybody here. So if you want to name names, that's fine. I don't know anyone who's saying that General Kelly cannot be criticized. That's one of the fundamentals of our nation. You and I criticize, Joel, people all the time on both sides of the aisle.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders said that.
Well, I do not agree with that. No one is above criticism if they are an elected official. That's one of the great things about our republic here. So I'm not saying, I would never say that General Kelly is above criticism here. And I don't think people are taking issue with everything else. What they're taking issue with is that Congresswoman Frederica Wilson politicized the death of one of our service members. And Andrea, speak to this, yes, if you will, because I don't even take issue with the fact that she listened in on the call if she was invited to do so. But she shared this with the mainstream media. She made this a divisive, partisan thing. This man gave his life for everyone, regardless of their skin color, regardless of their religion, regardless of the way that they voted. And she made it a partisan issue. That is despicable, no matter what side of the aisle you sit on.
Absolutely. She didn't just publicize it. And by the way, I actually think it was wrong to publicize it. Nobody's criticizing her for partaking in that phone call, but the way she publicized it and politicized it is absolutely despicable. And then when she was called out for it, she did something absolutely demeaning and actually got on board with defaming John Kelly and calling him a racist. There was absolutely nothing racist that he said in those remarks. And nobody, and again, Liz is right, nobody's saying that he's above criticism, but to actually accuse him of being a racist because of his criticism of her. And in terms of what he said about her, whether she grandstanded at that event by saying that she was a part of getting the money for it or getting it named, what does it matter? His point was well made. And the fact that she grandstanded at that event that he was at in Florida, and she has a history, in other words, of grandstanding and exploiting women and victims for power. And it's really astounding to me, what's stunning to me in the response is that the left doesn't seem to get that the American people are on to them. We all know that you're hypocritical and don't really care about this Gold Star widow when you pick and choose which Gold Star families that you have concern for. Where was the left in 2012 when President Obama and Hillary Clinton looked in the eyes of the Gold Star families of Benghazi and lied to them? Lied to them initially that it was about a video and then continued to lie to them for years. Obama the next morning went and fist bumped at a fundraiser at an event. Hillary Clinton before Congress saying, what difference does it make how they died? So really, I don't think the left is really in any position to be attacking anybody right now for disrespect to Gold Star families.
And Joel, respond to that.
See,
because
Andrea, yeah, I can respond to that. You see, Andrea, the language tweak that you used there, Obama went and fist bumped. See, you wonder why people
what was inaccurate about that?
So you wonder why people of color have such whiplash about this president.
What does that have to do with race?
Because
what does fist bumping have to do with race?
I can tell you what it has to do. I can tell you what it has to do with racist, because every time this president is confronted by a strong African-American voice, he seems to have an extra problem with it. There seems to be an extra hitch in his giddy-up. There seems to be a little extra something that he has a problem with regarding that. It seems like he doesn't like being corrected by someone who's an African-American, be it Maisha Johnson, be it Frederica Wilson, be it Steph Curry, be it Jamel Hill. For whatever reason, this president does not like African American and people of color. Khazir Khan.
I think what John Kelly missed in his list. I think what John Kelly missed in his list of things that have been sacrificed is free speech in this country. Because it's President Obama, where you were not allowed to criticize him in any way. You talk about John Kelly not being above criticism. We have not been allowed to level any criticism of President Obama on any regard, including policy, without being accused of being racist.
That's nonsense.
When Congresswoman Wilson was called out, what was the first thing that she did was accuse everybody of being racist. That is unfair, and you're pivoting off of my point about Gold Star families getting respect
what she said is
from
that
the
General
left.
Kelly used a racist term, which I disagree with, by the way. She did not call him racist. She said that she took that as an attack on her race. That's how she received
what's the difference?
Wait a second.
I don't agree with that.
Let me ask you a question.
That's what she
No,
said.
this
There
is a very
full
interesting
difference,
conversation.
And that's why we talk past each other.
No, let me ask you a question here. Why do you assume, Joel, that the president takes issue with these people because of their skin color? I mean, why is that the collective characteristic that you choose? Why wouldn't you assume that he takes issue with these people because they attack him first? Why do you immediately pivot to race?
You know why, Liz? Because I'm tired of hearing that this president punches back. He's the president. He's 71 years old. He's supposed to have enough common sense and enough virtue to understand when not to punch down, when to leave it be. When, by the way, when Maisha Johnson came on Good Morning America this morning and confirmed everything that Frederica Wilson said and said everything that she said was correct, but we won't hear about that because people are backed up into their camps.
But I don't understand what that has to do with race.
It doesn't have anything to do with what it has to do with, Liz, is anytime they're
listen, Joel, I'm not saying that there are times that the president should be quiet on Twitter. I agree with that. You and I have talked about that before. There are times he should be a little more thick-skinned. He shouldn't be as thin-skinned, in my opinion, on his Twitter account as often as he is. I don't see the correlation between that and race. He attacks Mitch McConnell. He attacks Chuck Schumer. He attacks Nancy Pelosi. He attacks people of every characteristic just as often as that. I don't understand why you're pivoting to race. I think that is one of the problems in our country, is that Democrats can't come to the table and say, listen, we don't like how the president attacks us personally. He attacks us personally because we have philosophical differences, or because sometimes he's thin-skinned. Why does it have to go back to the color of your skin? Because truthfully, it has nothing to do with the color of your skin.
Do this for 30
well, why
years.
is it, if I can interject here, why is it that President Trump, is it that President Trump is never allowed to defend himself at all? Who actually leveled these accusations here? I don't think that there's anybody with any intellectual honesty who could listen to that phone call and say that whether or not you think that one particular phrase was less than artfully said was not a well-intentioned phone call from his heart. And so to mischaracterize it, if I was President Trump, I might be a little hurt myself and a little defensive if I had been attacked for doing something that President Obama didn't do with John Kelly.
All right, Joel, we have 15 seconds. Joel, last word.
All I was going to say, the original sin, as Liz said at the top of the show, was the president going and making a ridiculous attack against past presidents. That's where this started. It started with the immaturity and the lack of leadership and the lack of focus of this White House. That's where this started.
And I don't agree with that. I don't think it's an original sin. I think he shouldn't have done that. I think the original sin is the mainstream media always looking for something to hack Trump with, and even stooping to the level of using a Gold Star family, a woman who just lost her husband, a woman who just lost her son, as pawns to make their political point. That is the shameful part.
Andrea,
Joel, we have to go. Thanks for being here.